Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are having a falling out. What happened to Trump having all the cards? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Matt Gnesta. Remember when everybody was talking about how Trump was Putin's puppet? And not just because Trump looks like a grown-up Beaker from the Muppets. Or how he was rooting for Putin? Or about the Trump-Putin alliance? Well, things aren't exactly as many make it out to be. It seems Trump has had it with Putin. He came into office promising to end the Ukraine war. But Putin keeps smacking that idea down left and right. Now, it looks like negotiations are out the window. A very high window that Putin swears the negotiations fell out of by accident. Back in April, when Russia launched a massive drone and missile attack on Kiev, Trump told Vladimir to stop. This all happened soon after Trump said Russia was ready to get a deal. I never watched Let's Make a Deal, but I'm pretty sure you don't make a deal by trying to murder Wayne Brady. And even after Trump had a 2-hour call with Putin that he thought went very well, things really haven't improved since then.
Yeah, I'll give you an update. I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
Man, don't you hate it when you're talking to somebody on the phone and you can tell they aren't paying attention or doing something else like checking Instagram or laying siege to a sovereign nation? Man. And the way Trump frames it makes it seem as though Putin snapped somehow.
I don't like what Putin is doing, not even a little bit. He's killing people. And something happened to this guy, and I don't like it.
Which is like saying a killer whale snaps when it kills a trainer at a theme park. How are you surprised? Killer is literally in the name. Trump went so far as to write that Putin has gone absolutely crazy. Although to go crazy would imply having to go there from being not crazy. This happened just before the bigliest of Russia's drone and missile attacks against Ukraine. Now, this wouldn't be the first time people have questioned what's going on in old Putin's noggin. And as of this recording, Putin has yet to show that he really wants to end the war. War is the only thing that puts a smile on his face. This is his smiling face. So Trump is now reportedly weighing sanctions and warned on Truth Social that what Vladimir Putin doesn't realize is that if it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia, and I mean really bad. He's playing with fire. Though, given Russia's average yearly temperature is 30 below a witch's teat, playing with fire is kind of a Russian survival tactic. So what happened? Why hasn't Trump been able to stop Putin from continuing his invasion of Ukraine? Keep in mind, Trump has done a lot to grease the wheels for Russia. He told off Ukrainian President Zelensky, had the U.S. vote with Russia against a UN resolution, and spared Russia from new tariffs, all while being called a Putin ally who is indifferent to ongoing slaughter. It was the greasiest wheels since a freshly baked batch of donuts. Of course, media outlets are having a field day ripping Trump now. About this, I mean, they've been having a field day ripping him 24/7 since 2015. They're casting Trump as being naive to think he could negotiate with Putin. He's delusional, being played by Putin like a puppet. Though I'd say it was more like a doll since Putin is totally a horse girl. It turns out Trump is finally waking up to Putin's brutality, even though Putin is far savvier than Trump. But to be fair, Trump wasn't entirely bending over for Putin. He's continuing intelligence and security assistance for Ukraine, and he even threatened tariffs on Russian oil. So it's more like he was greasing a wheel that had a boot on it. He also went with extending sanctions on Russian ships and warned that he doesn't want endless talks with Russia. Makes sense. Based on how often he posts on social media, you can tell Trump hates calls and is much more of a texting guy. But it's pretty clear to see that since returning to office, Trump has been much more focused on offering Russia carrots rather than sticks. The thing is, U.S. presidents long before Trump thought that they could negotiate with Putin. Bill Clinton said that Putin kept his word in all the deals we made. And George W. Bush famously said that he saw Putin's soul and could trust him.
I looked the man in the eye. I found him to be very straightforward and trustworthy. We had a very good dialogue. I was able to get a sense of his soul. There was no kind of diplomatic chit-chat trying to throw each other off balance. There was a straightforward dialogue, and that's the beginning of a very constructive relationship. I wouldn't have invited him to my ranch if I didn't trust him.
Wow, I can't believe a guy who chose Dick Cheney as his vice president would have a hard time telling when someone was evil by looking them in the eye. Well, it gradually dawned on some people that maybe Russia can't be trusted, especially after they flattened Chechnya, invaded Georgia, helped obliterate Syria, and invaded Ukraine. Twice. Yet Putin's real straightforward, right into other people's territory. Bush gave some more detail in 2018 by claiming Russia was broke when he said he saw Putin's soul.
Well, what happened was when I looked in his eyes and saw his soul, Russia was broke. I mean, short-term broke. And price of oil goes up and Putin changed.
Putin changed. That sounds all too familiar, which leads us to a very important point. Many Americans believe, or at least publicly promote, some pretty naive myths. One of those myths is the idea that authoritarian countries will behave with good faith deals in exchange for economic gain. This line of thinking was how the West got to do business with Russia and China. However, the U.S. constantly underestimates how much of a threat these countries might become. And in doing so, the U.S. helps them grow into dangerous adversaries. After his 2-hour call with Putin, Trump told the world Russia wants to do large-scale trade with the United States when his catastrophic bloodbath is over. And I agree, there is tremendous opportunity for Russia to create massive amounts of jobs and wealth. Its potential is unlimited. But Americans really underestimate how far Russia is willing to go without the kind of economic deals Trump is promising. British commentator Konstantin Kisin brings up some very interesting points that help explain why. While Americans have a culture of openness, cooperation, and positivity, they don't have a history of being conquered by powerful enemies, mass persecution, or extermination like the rest of the world does. They're okay with just making peace deals, giving other countries the benefit of the doubt, and letting bygones be bygones without worrying that it'll come back to bite them. After all, look how things turned out with America's former overlords, the British, its enemy Spain, and Germany, and Japan, even Vietnam. They're pretty much friends now. But Russia is different. It was utterly devastated by foreigners like the Mongols and Europeans, most famously Napoleon, and a failed Austrian painter with a funny mustache. It's had vast swaths of its population starved, diseased, raped, and wiped out for hundreds of years. Not an excuse for Russia to do horrible things to other countries, but it is understandable why Russia feels like it should do whatever it takes to assert power. Meanwhile, the biggest conflict many Americans have dealt with is finding a parking space at Trader Joe's. So Putin's not crazy like Trump claims, nor has he suddenly changed his nature. Putin has always looked at the world through a cold, zero-sum lens, where anything and everything is acceptable. We're talking about a former KGB officer in the Soviet Union, a communist regime that murdered and imprisoned dissidents. No matter how devastated Russia is, Putin will lie, manipulate, and kill to get whatever he wants if he believes that is what it takes to maintain Russian security. And in his eyes, maintaining influence over Ukraine is vital for that. If Trump wants a deal, it needs to include more than promises of economic prosperity and trade. It needs to include serious consequences for violating it. Now, there's another myth, and I think it's a terrible one, that the U.S. should just keep its troops within its borders and deploy them overseas only if the U.S. is directly attacked. This idea comes from America's history of never being conquered by another more powerful nation. Yet, I see you, Candyland, and I know you're biding your sweet time. It's a popular stance, especially among those who oppose any and all foreign aid to Ukraine and other countries. The assumption is that if America doesn't deploy forces abroad or give military aid to other countries, the U.S. will be left alone in peace. Basically, treat others nicely and you'll be treated nicely in return. But most countries in the real world don't have the luxury to live like that. That'd be like saying, if you don't help your neighbor get rid of the rats, then the rats will leave you alone. That's not how rats work, especially when they're desperate and trying to raise 4 teenage turtles on their own. The US learned that the hard way when it decided in the early 20th century to not keep a strong presence in the Indo-Pacific. Senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and friend of the show, Cleo Pascal, points out that this was a major strategic miscalculation. It allowed Imperial Japan to expand into the Indo-Pacific, which eventually helped lead to the attack on Pearl Harbor and a war that cost more than 100,000 American lives. The US could have lost far less lives and resources if it had the foresight to position itself in the Indo-Pacific better. Plus, no one would have ever had to suffer through a Michael Bay romance period piece. It makes many think that the US could have something even worse than Pearl Harbor happen again if China decides to invade Taiwan, as it's already expanding throughout the world. And for a long time, the US government has allowed this to happen. Whether it's with China or Russia, and why not throw in Iran and North Korea just for funsies? Many Americans believe that they can promote peace through promises of economic prosperity and self-restraint. But that's exactly what authoritarians exploit. The feeling that you're in control of the situation, but they're making you dance like a puppet. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. And if you want to help us keep making episodes like this, click the link below to join us at AmericaUncovered.tv. Once again, I'm Matt Gnezda. Thank you for watching America Uncovered.